Hello, everyone. My name is Simona. I'm working as a software global black belt at Microsoft. So what I'm doing on a daily basis is work with customers, focusing on developers. So the topics vary quite a lot from one customer to another. It can be platform engineering, it can be how you can improve your CI/CD, how to secure the code. So there are different topics, but one consistent theme across all this is security. So no matter what we are talking about, security is always on top of mind, and there are a lot of questions around this and what are the best practices, how we can approach this. Especially right now with all the changes and how with AI, so there are a lot of considerations. So for this session, my plan is to discuss a little bit how AI is changing how we are developing code, discuss a little bit about the threats, what are the new concerns, how we address those, a little bit on securing dependencies, code, secrets, everything that is part of an application, and then how we leverage AI to secure code. So I'm hoping to bring some ideas on how you can basically secure AI with AI, but disclaimer, that's not the only way to do it. It's more like, let's have this as a first layer of defense. Then I'm going to show some demos on how you can do that, and Q&A at the end. So AI is is influencing every tasks within our daily life. While it started, I don't know, 4 years ago, it was mostly, yeah, we can help with small tasks. We can do this and that. But it wasn't necessarily very mature, right? But it evolved quite a lot. So AI is influencing how developers are writing code, what you can do with AI. Initially, it started as, yeah, when we are talking about code, autocomplete. But now you can have agents, you can build entire architectures, features, and so on. So it evolved quite a lot. Now, on the bright side is that you can develop code a lot much faster. So the demos and the projects the customers were building 6 months ago, those are so easy to do it now. Because the LLMs are evolving, everything is evolving, so it's a lot much easier to implement new features, create new solutions, and so on. Since we are able to build so much faster, that means that there are high chances we are going to add more and more vulnerabilities. So there is more code, there will be more vulnerabilities as well, and new ways to explore and exploit those vulnerabilities. So what does this mean? We need to find new ways, and we need to be smart on how we approach security and how we integrate security as part of our daily life, as part of our workflows, as part of CI/CD. We've seen this natural language shift. So initially, as a developer, you're focusing a lot on implementation, code, reviewing, and so on. Now, it's more prompting. And one important aspect, I'm not advocating for vibe coding. So vibe coding, it's great, small POCs, fun projects, but when we are talking about production, you are not going to vibe code your way into production. But the truth is, you are going to leverage AI to help you with new features, new solutions. So we see this shift where, yes, we are relying on prompts. Yes, we are relying on AI to develop the code, but we need to do it in a smart way. We are going to discuss a little bit later about different patterns that we see evolving in this area, but for now, that shift is quite clear between prompting more than actually writing code. We don't have to forget about human in the loop. So we are going to use AI, we are going to secure our code and everything, but we still need developers to review that. Because what we see between the generation and the actual commit phase, you need to review that code. You need to have a structured process on how you are doing testing, how you are securing the code, how you are doing all the necessary steps to ensure that your code is production ready. And you need to have a well-defined process on how to do that. When we are talking about the threat landscape, so first of all, secrets. It's not, it's quite obvious and everyone agrees secrets are very important, don't put them in plain text, and so on. Now with AI, there is a higher chance of having some secrets added to your project. Maybe because the developer was writing something in the chat, it shared the key, and the autocomplete added that key as part of a file. So you need to be very aware and have a grasp on how you are securing your secrets and how you do that. I mentioned earlier that there will be more code produced. And with AI, if you are relying on that, you'll probably see some insecure patterns in the code that is being generated. I think more and more code agents and providers are focusing on that angle. But for now, you should assume the code is not secure. So you are responsible to secure that code. You're going to see different insecure patterns, and you will need to identify those. You will have to fix those. In terms of dependencies, the same thing. You are going to see a sprawl with all those dependencies. We see attackers taking advantage of well-known packages, adding duplicates of those, or misspelling small things. So when a user installs that dependency, it will run some malicious code. That's just one example. Another thing, and I think everyone is aware of that, is how we ensure that the model behaves as expected, and how we ensure that there won't be a prompt injection. Again, depending on what providers and what LMs and so on you are using, you will see there are different policies and capabilities to avoid this kind of scenarios, but that's something to keep in mind. So when we are talking about an application, the anatomy of an application, first of all, you have your code, the code that you are writing. And it's going to contain secrets, it's going to contain your code, it's going to contain dependencies. And those dependencies, yeah, you are going to rely on third parties for those. It's not something that you write yourself, but it's something that you need to ensure they are secure. Another thing is containers. We see so many customers, so many developers using containers. How do we secure those? So that's another thing that you need to keep in mind and ensure that is part of your security practices. So let's take it step by step. First of all, I was mentioning earlier secrets, right? So it's quite obvious for everyone, don't share secrets. And despite that, we've seen, I don't know, 39 million secrets shared on GitHub. So that's surprising, or at least it was for me. Because again, everyone knows not to do that. But it happens. It can be a mistake. Hey, I'm testing something locally. I have this key. I'm just trying things out. And after that, you forget about it and push it. That's a secret leaked. Now, the thing is, if you have that secret leaked, it will take probably a few minutes and it's going to be exploited. So you will want to make sure that you are on top of what's happening. So when we are talking about a compromised secret, most probably it's going to provide access to other systems. It's going to do lateral movement, and it will access different components, different systems that shouldn't be accessed. On top of that, when we are talking about open source, that's even more tricky, right? Because there are automated bots just checking for keys for secrets. So one common scenario, and I think everyone heard about this, especially now with AI, everyone is playing around. Everyone is using an LLM deployment somewhere, and you have a deployment key. There were so many cases where developers shared that key by mistake, they forgot, and then they ended up with quite a huge bill because that key was exploited and used by multiple users. So be very conscious and very aware of what you're doing and how you're doing. So detection is very important, but ideally, you wouldn't end up in that situation in the first place. So focus on how you can prevent that, how to ensure that you won't get at that stage. So try to shift security as much as possible to the left. Have different policies, different standards, implement it as early as possible. Because if you have a secret and that secret is exposed, it's going to take you a while to understand what's happening, how are you attacked, what are the implications, and it's going to take a lot to fix it and a lot to actually ensure that everything is running as expected and have everything healthy again. Another consideration here is developers versus security people. So there are so many developers. Now, even AI enables even more people to create code, even if they don't necessarily have a programming or computer science background. So we need to ensure that we are adding security and make security very visible to the end user. Try to add different security measures directly into the workflows and have it very obvious for the developers. So let's say you have some secrets. Those secrets were found in the code. From there on is a process. So you need to understand, what is the secret? Who owns it? Where exactly is being used? Then understand what is the access, what are the permissions, understand the dependencies. So what components can you access with that secret? So it's going to take a while to understand the complexity and the impact of having that secret shared. Of course, you're going to revoke the secret or regenerate the certificates and so on, but you will need to paint that whole picture. What was the timeline? Who used this secret? What happened? And this remediation is going to take more and more time. So I want to add some of the, so how you can protect yourself. I'm going to use GitHub as a reference because I'm using it quite often, but this is just a reference and just an idea on how you can approach security. So first of all, within GitHub, you have secret protection. So that's something that you can enable. So what does it mean? Once you enable that in your organization, you can actually have a comprehensive overview of the secrets within your organization. How many were leaked? What are the repositories? What exactly is happening there? There are different features, and I will tackle some of those in a minute. What's important with this is that it's at GitHub level, so at your organization. It's not just the commit that I'm pushing it now. No, it's the entire history. It's all the commits, all the gists, and everything that you have in your organization. And just as a curiosity, so you can actually do a free assessment. So if you go to your organization, just do a free assessment and you can see if you have any secrets leaked. Just like a fun experiment. So with the secrets, there are different ways on how we are doing this, and you can define that in different ways. But basically, we are able to identify secrets from different partnerships, from different vendors. So you will see that, of course, you're going to find Azure-related secrets, AWS, GCP, and so on. So let's say I am using a storage account in Azure, and I have a key for that storage. I'm pushing it upstream on GitHub. GitHub will be able to pick it up, understand this is an Azure storage key. Is it live or not? And give you some details about that. So that's quite nice. Beside that, if you have specific patterns and specific ways of defining passwords, you can use regex and you can do it yourself. And with Copilot, we are going to be able to identify those secrets. I was mentioning earlier prevention. So yeah, the discovery, that's nice. I want to see what's the status within my organization. But I want to ensure that the developers, from now on, they won't be able to push secrets. So push protection is one of the capabilities here. And what you can do, you can enable push protection within your organization or in a repository and so on. So when a developer is in the IDE, tries to commit something containing a secret, they will receive a policy error. Hey, you are sharing a secret. This is the secret. Fix it, and then you can push. So this is very nice because you eliminate that scenario where the developer is, oh, I forgot, or different mistakes, or I wasn't paying attention, or somehow that secret is there in plain text. And I think this is one of the important points with security and developers. Because sometimes I feel like it's a disconnection between developers and the security teams. And as a developer, I want to be able to move fast. I want to be able to do things. On the other hand, we have security teams, yes, but we have rules. Well, you need to adhere to these policies. You maybe don't have access to this and that or a specific environment. So we want to find the right balance between these two, right? And in this way, it's something as a developer I don't have to worry. It's a policy that it's enabled for me, and it will notify me if I'm doing something wrong, which, yeah, I really like. I was mentioning earlier dependencies, secrets, and so on. Another thing that we have in GitHub is code security. So let's start with dependencies, right? You are depending on different dependencies, and you want to have an overview what's happening. And with dependencies, we have dependency review. So basically what's happening, it will scan your repository, and it will understand what type of dependencies you have. You will have a hierarchy and an entire visibility across the landscape. So you will see what dependencies you are relying on and what are the dependencies of those dependencies and so on. So it's an easy way to have visibility across dependencies. One thing. Another thing, you will be able to see that you are going to get different notifications. So you are going to be automatically notified if you are using a dependency which contains a vulnerability. That's another important point as a developer to be aware of. Because I want to have that visibility, but I want it in a very easy way for me to do that discovery. So one of the examples that I give you it quite often. So Log4j was a huge issue, right? And we had customers coming 6 months or so after the vulnerability was exposed. And they were like, oh, we just realized we were using Log4j. So it took them 6 months to understand that they were using that. Another aspect that for me was a little bit surprising. So you really need to have some tools, some services to have that discovery done in an easy way. And some customers have that in place, but some not really. And what I want to emphasize here is that while before AI, some customers were like, yeah, this is optional, or we'll see. Now you really don't have that option. You really need to be on top of what's happening in your environment. Because you are going to have a bunch of dependencies. And as a developer, if you don't have some good instructions, if you don't use AI in the right way, you are exposed and you will end up in some very tricky situations with dependencies. Code scanning, that's another important aspect that I would like to tackle. And here is mostly around code, right? So depending on the programming languages, you are going to get different recommendations. So what we are using behind the scene is CodeQL. This is a query language. So depending on the programming language, you are going to get insights on the vulnerabilities that you might introduce with your code. That's another thing for me as a developer. Yeah, I might have some security background or some security understanding, but I'm not an expert. So there might be some pieces of code that I wrote introducing vulnerabilities. So I would really like something like this to point me in the right direction. So with code scanning, what's happening, based on your commits and what exactly you are pushing, CodeQL will do the queries, and you will get notified. You will get different PRs where you can see, hey, these lines of code introduce a vulnerability. You are going to get a description of that vulnerability to explain this is the potential impact, and then how to solve that. As a developer, I find that useful because I get some hints. I get an idea. I'm introducing a vulnerability, and I need to fix this. Then, how to use AI to secure, right? So you are going to get a bunch of notifications for dependencies, for different vulnerabilities in the code, and so on. So with AutoFix, basically what you can do, you can automatically fix those issues. Let me give you an example. For dependencies, if there is a vulnerability in a dependency, in most often cases, you're going to do an upgrade of that dependency and then fix the code if needed. What you can do now, you can use AutoFix to do all that for you. Of course, there are some issues that will be very easily fixed, and you can leave that to AutoFix. There are some which might be more complex, and in that case, you might want to take a look yourself or choose AutoFix and then just review. Good. Then, as an administrator or security teams, or I want to have that visibility, what's happening. And you will want to be able to get an overview across your entire organization. So for this one, we have security campaigns. So let's say SQL injection is something that's quite often an issue in the organization. What you can do, you can create a campaign for SQL injection. And once you do that, you will be able to see all the repositories who have a SQL injection alert. So as a security team, you have an overview. This is how many repositories have this problem. How can we solve it? Where do we assign it for? And take the next steps. So as a developer, I can go directly into the repository, check what are the alerts, and the pull request and take it from there. From a security overview, I can see a holistic picture across my company. Yeah, I mentioned earlier Copilot AutoFix, so this is something that would look like. So you have the vulnerability explained in the code, and then what would be the fix. So you would receive something like that. You can take a look, and after that, we either fix it or provide it to AutoFix. Yeah. So some guardrails and strategies here. First of all, you're going to spend some time on prevention. You want to make sure that you have the right policies in place, that you have the right environments. Now, this is a little bit tricky because we see with many customers, it's a little bit difficult to find that fine line. So either developers are not happy, either security teams are not happy, so you really need to hit the right spot. We are advocating quite a lot for platform engineering, and we see the need for this more and more. So basically, it's a practice where you have a dedicated platform engineering team having the developers at the end customer. So their purpose is to basically provide an internal developer platform, to provide a way to self-service different environments, different templates, whatever the developer needs in order to be able to move fast. Now, the important part is you are going to provide those templates, but as part of those templates, you are going to integrate the right policies, the right setup, and ensure that as soon as the developer will have access to that environment, it comes pre-installed with everything that's needed and has all the policies in place and so on. When we are talking about AI agents, so as a developer, yeah, everyone is using coding agent only. How many of you are using GitHub Copilot, Claude, or something similar right now? Okay. How many of you are using instructions and customizations for those? Okay. We are going to talk about that a little bit later. But yes, when we are talking and when we are discussing about development using AI, you will need to provide the right context. You will need to provide the right instructions to ensure that the outcomes that you are going to get is what's expected. So ideally, in this prevention phase, you are also going to define what are your organization standards when you are using coding agents. What are the instructions? What are the patterns? And how to scale that across your organization. So when a developer gets started, it actually has already the custom agents, instructions, and everything that is needed. Then the detection. So you're going to probably infuse AI, probably add some additional steps in your pipeline to test the code, secure the code, and so on. But don't think about the fact, when we are talking about securing the code, a lot of people are like, yeah, but this code is generated by AI. Sure, but treat it as it was developed by your developers. So you already probably already had a process in place, right? So as soon as someone does a pull request or whatever, you are going to run some unit tests, run some security tests, and so on. So even the code is generated by AI, you are going to use the same process and maybe augment that either AI, either additional tools to ensure that you are covered from all the angles. Testing is more important than ever. So before, I think it was mostly a little bit of an afterthought, and it was like, I need to add unit tests, that's boring. I will do the minimum necessary and move on. Now, you can't review all the code. It's too much. And you need to be smart on how you're approaching it. How you're going to do testing, how you're going to review all that code, and you are going to rely on AI, you are going to rely on different tools to help you with that. Monitoring, it's another important aspect. So it goes hand in hand with security. You will want to get all the relevant metrics. You will want to make sure that you are auditing different steps and integrate all those signals as part of your SIEM to be able to do all the correlations that are needed to prevent different attacks and be able to easily get that overview if, in fact, you are hacked, what happened, and have that visibility. Governance, so that's something that will span across all the stages. Of course, you are going to have a governance baseline, but that's going to change with time. You will always need to adapt. You'll always need to add new policies. There will be need for more governance depending on what's coming next. And you need to integrate that as part of your environment. Yeah, so I was mentioning earlier instructions, right? So I would say this is mandatory. If you are using a coding agent, that's something that you need to add. It's not something, it's optional, no. You need to provide the context. Because by default, the agent will have the context of your code base. But you probably are relying on different integrations, and you will want to have that context provided to the LLM. More than that, MCPs. So we see MCPs for everything right now, and they are very powerful, and it's something that you are going to rely a lot on. But again, that's something that you need to ensure that you have a strong foundation on what is actually being allowed to be used in your company, how those tools are being used, and the right agents are using the right tools. And with instructions, that's one way. That's the first step, I would say. Because you are going to have your coding standards. You are going to have your policies. And with instructions, you are basically providing guidelines for the agent. So when it's generating code, it's going to generate code taking into account your instructions. So you are going to spend some time understanding what are those instructions for your projects, what are the instructions that are applicable to your organization, and you'll probably have multiple instructions depending on the projects and components that you have. I'm going to show you during the demo how you can leverage those instructions. Custom agents. How many of you are using custom agents? Okay, only a few. I think this is one of the coolest things, in my opinion. Because by default, you are relying on the built-in agents. Now, you can create your own agents, and you can customize it however you want. Think about the custom agents as a specialized persona. So when I'm working on a project, I have multiple agents. I have an agent for how to create APIs. I have an agent for testing. I have an agent for security. I have an agent who is going to help me in different stages of the development. And what I want to show you later is how you can actually leverage custom agents to infuse some security into your developer workflow. Last but not least, how do we ensure that we have the right workflows in place and how we define those workflows? As I mentioned earlier, as soon as someone does a commit or a pull request, ideally you have a pipeline and you have different steps as part of that pipeline. Now, you can actually integrate AI as part of that as well. So what you can do, you can have first layer of defense using different prompts and different agents to ensure some basic security, do some checks. If that fails, then someone, a developer, AI, will fix it, and then you have those cycles where you can actually reiterate and ensure that the code is as it's supposed to be. Yes, so let me switch to the demo part, and we can discuss a little bit more concrete. Can you see in the back? Is it fine? Or should I zoom it a little bit? And this might be a little bit too much. Okay, so first of all, what I wanted to show is instructions. So if you check, so I'm using GitHub Copilot, and everything will happen in the .github folder, and everything relevant will be there. The concept that I'm going to show you here is not necessary just for GitHub Copilot. You are going to find instructions and so on with other agents. So you will see that I have different instructions. So I have instructions for how to create APIs. I have instructions how to work with databases, front end, and so on. So basically, I'm enforcing and providing guidelines for Copilot. So when it's defining a new API, it's going to use these instructions because I'm following some principles. Also, I want to review and make sure that different aspects are being implemented as part of that API creation. Also, of guidance, especially for APIs, I want Copilot to automatically add unit tests and ensure that everything is passing. So this is one example. Now, you see here that these instructions apply to specific folders, and I provide a description. What we can do something similar for security. So if I go here, and let's say I want some new instructions, create new, yes, it will be there, security, yeah, let's say security. It automatically creates a file. It's just description and how it's the schema. what I want to show you is that you won't start from scratch. How many of you are familiar with Awesome Copilot? Okay, a few. You must know this. So this is a community-driven repository where you are going to find a bunch of examples in terms of skills, instructions, agents, and so on. So you won't start from scratch. You are going to start most probably with a template from here. Of course, there are other examples on the internet and so on, but I use this quite often, and I think this is very useful. So if we check instructions, you will see that there are a bunch of instructions here. So what you are going to do, most probably you are going to search. Let's see if there is something for security. Yeah, so there is one for security. Let's take a look here. So comprehensive secure coding instructions for all languages and frameworks based on OWASP 10, top 10 and industry best practices. And here are the instructions. So an overview across and some examples. And what you can do, you can just take this one. I'm just going to copy it. And then I can paste it here. Now, you can see this one applies to everything. So every time Copilot is thinking and generating something in a file, it will have to take into account these instructions. So you will see I didn't have any instructions, security instructions for my project, and you will see I have a bunch of issues. It's intended to be like that because it's a demo repository, but I want to show you how you can do this in the right way. So ideally, you are going to have instructions. This is an example, but I'm going to show you more complex scenarios after. So okay, we have instructions. That's nice. So we kind of provide some guidance, security guidance on the code that is being generated. Now, what I want to have an agent who is going to be specialized only in security. So same thing, now we are creating a custom agent. Security, create a new custom agent. Okay, I did something wrong. Give me 1 second. So custom agents, yes, security. Okay, there we go. So now it created a file, and you can see I have security.agent.md. Now, what's going to happen? If I go here, you'll see all the agents that I have, and here is our security agent. And this is what we are going to use for security-related matters. Now, it doesn't do much, right? It's just the schema. So what we are going to do, if we go back here, before that, we were checking instructions. Now we are going to move to agents. So if we check agents, you will see there is an agent for everything. There is a C# expert, an Azure expert, agent governance reviewer. So you have a little bit of everything. Let me check security. You should have something for security as well. Yeah, SD security reviewer. That's a good one. So let's take a look here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just paste this one. And if you take a look, it's like the name, the description, what the agent is doing, the model that is using. Yeah, that's not what I wanted. Give me 1 second. So let's, okay, fine. Yes, so the model that is using and the tools that it has access to. So this is a way to ensure that the tools are the right tools. So this agent will have access only the tools that I define here. So yeah, there was a change in the tool names. Let me fix this one quickly. Yes, so when I am using this agent, it will be able to search the codebase. It will be able to edit some files. It will be able to search. So these are the tools that are available for this agent. So when I am using it, it's going to review the code for vulnerabilities. So if we check the instructions, it's like review the code for security vulnerabilities, and there are different steps. Like analyze what you are reviewing. I'm providing some guidance. When we are talking about web API, check this. When you are doing about checking ML model code and so on, check this. So I'm providing some instructions on how to do it. On top of that, I'm telling it, select the 3, 5 most category based on the context. So based on my code base, I want to ensure that it's focusing on the right things. And then I'm going to, there are some instructions and some examples of different vulnerabilities. Now, if we do this code base, I'm using that agent. So what's going to happen, it will follow the instructions that I added here. So the user is asking to analyze the code. I'm in this mode. My mission is to review the code. And then I'm analyzing the code base, focusing on these vulnerabilities. Let me start by checking the application structure. And from here on is reading the application, understanding what am I using, and based on that, focus on the right on the vulnerabilities and on its mission. Any questions while we are waiting for this one to be done? Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a very good question. So I would keep it. I wouldn't add too much on the instruction side, because at some point you are just going to add more noise. So what you can do, you can have instruction files, but dedicated for specific paths, but keep it brief. I would say focus on the patterns, focus on those generic instructions. Then if you want something more concrete, you should add skills. So skills are very nice because by default, they are not part of the context. I'm going to give you an example on the skills later, and we can discuss about that. Yeah, there was another question in the back. Yes. Yes, so I don't have that. So what you would have is your organization allowing you the extensions. So you would have a pre-configured list for that. Yes. Yes, you can do that. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying. So yeah, you are going to find the same concepts no matter what you're using. So it's going to be custom agents and usable prompts and instructions. So you have these primitive or core concepts that are across all the agents. Yeah. Okay, so this one is done. So let's take a look. So it's a lot. Security analysis report, ready for production? No. We found critical vulnerabilities? Yes. We were expecting that. So priority number 1, you really need to fix this before production. So with this one, basically anyone can access, create, and influence the supply chain data. We don't have any authentication for that. Then we are not validating any inputs, and you have an example. I mean, you have examples on how you can fix that, but it's nice that I have the impact, I have the bits of code, and then what I need to fix and how to do that. On top of that, different recommendations and enhancements, but yeah, you have some guidelines on how to approach that. I don't want to go into too much details on this one because I want to show you an even more complex use case of custom agents. So we can discuss based on that. Okay, so one of my colleagues, he created, yeah, I'm going to use this as a reference because I think this is very nice. So this is how you can use custom agents to ensure some security, and it's using only open source tools. So what I did, I just added the agents that were here, the agents and the skills. And I'm going to go over that process and how exactly does it work. So if we go back to agent, I have this security scanner agent. So you will see this is a lot much more complex. So if you check the instructions are quite a lot, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to use this agent to analyze code for malicious patterns, but we are very opinionated and we are providing clear instructions on how you can do that. So the mission is to review all the code, identify malicious patterns that could indicate attempt to exfiltrate secrets or sensitive data, code that doesn't fit the project's normal context, unusual network activity, data transfers, and so on. How you're going to do that? So critical safety guardrails. Since we assume our project is very unsecure, we are instructing the agent. You are going to never, oops, we are going to never run, execute, or invoke any code, script, command, or application that is being analyzed for security issues. So I'm telling it, don't run any code from this app. Then, never use eval, exec, and so on if you want to test some code. Never download, run, copy, paste, and so on. So I'm very specific about big no-nos. Then, what I'm going to allow, so you are able to run the terminal for specific tools. And these are the open source tools that I'm using in order to get the security vulnerabilities. So maybe I can start there. Give me 1 second, because I have, while I'm discussing this, I will just add Copilot, hey, give me an overview of the tools needed and a short description what they are doing, so we can you can get a clear picture of what I'm leveraging here. But these are more or less it. So all these that you can just use, as I mentioned, they are open source, and these are the only tools that I am allowing to run in the terminal. Then blocked commands, I don't want to do to use curl, eval, so on. Don't run different scripts, so on. There are different instructions for prompt injection defense. If you are asked to execute code, check, and these are the techniques. How I'm defining this agent, there are 2 operating modes, because you might not have the tools installed. So the first mode is when you have the skills. So it's going to check, one of the first steps is going to check what tools do you have installed. And the first mode is with the skills. So the workflow, you are going to check the .github skills directory for the relevant skills, and then use them. Then, if you don't have those skills defined, then we have a standalone pattern analysis, it's going to use attack vectors, reference, language-specific red flags, detection checklist, and so on. So we want to cover both cases here. So startup sequence, I'm telling you the first thing, you are going to check if .github skills exist. This is it comes directly with from the repository. Then, in order to run use those skills, of course, you need to have the tools available. So it's going to check if the tools are installed. And then, depending on the result of the tools, it's going to select what's the operating mode. It's going to be mode 1, where you have the skills and you have everything installed, or it's a combination between skills and the default mode, so on. I want at the end the report, and then I'm going step by step explaining if the skills are available. This is how you are going to. This is what you are going to do. So basically, checking the tools and providing more instructions. This is quite a lot. I won't go into more details than this, but okay, this one is done. Let's take a look here. So this is an overview of what Give me 1 second. Yes, so I was in the security agent mode, and yeah, it provided, I wasn't specific enough, and it provided an overview of the tools and everything that I'm using in this repository. So yeah. So I'm not interested in that. Let me run with the agent, and we can take a look exactly what is the workflow and what's happening here. So I'm using the same prompt as earlier, but now it's oops. I'm getting lost in agents. Yes, this is the right one. Let me refresh this and then do that. Okay. So what's going to happen, you will see that it will more or less take the same approach and that is defined here. It will check for the tools and from there on try to understand what's happening and take it from there. While this one is happening, I want to focus a little bit on skills because I was mentioning skills. And you will see that I added a skill for each tool. So what I'm saying here is, okay, I have a skill MD. So skills, I was mentioning, they are very nice because they are not part of the context. So by default, you have all these skills, but the agent will use those only when they are relevant. So depending on the task, the prompt, and so on, it will check if it's relevant to add that skill as the context. For example, if bandit is not installed here, this skill won't be added as part of the context. So what Copilot will check is the name and the description. So when we are using skills, it's very important to provide the right description because based on that, the agent will define if it's part of the context or not. Yes, so in my case, I don't have the tools installed. I have only one, and yeah, it's going through the process to understand what tools do I have available, if it's installed or not. If it's not installed, it will work with what I have because that's what I define. So the skills, I have a skill MD for every tool. I have some references that Copilot can use and different examples. Now, you're going to say, yeah, but this is a lot. How do I write this? How do I come up with these things? It's too much. So what I did in order to generate those, I created a prompt to do that. So if we check the prompts here, I have one which is going to create a skill. Security skill, yes, this one. So what you need to do, you need to run this prompt with the tool and the documentation. So basically this one creates a skill for security scanning tool. How you're going to use it, you're just going to provide the name of the tool and what is the link to the documentation. From there on, is going to use the tools to fetch the information from that link and create the skill. So the task is to create the skill for scanning code for security vulnerabilities or malicious patterns using the following security tool. So the name, this is the documentation from the URL. From there on, what you're going to do, you are going to fetch the documentation using this tool, and you're going to instruct how to install it, what is the usage, what are the rules, what are the relevant skills. It's going to define more instructions, but basically I'm providing a template here. The body must contain when to use this skill, what are the prerequisites, some available rules, checks, what are the workflows, and some recommendations and examples. So if you check all the skills that I have, they have an example folder that is going to be used as a reference where there are different patterns that that tool can help with. And what you need to do, of course, you will need to review that. So that's something that, yes, you need to check. I would say maybe modify if you want to adjust something, but have a way to test this and ensure that whatever template was generated and so on followed your instructions. So yeah, I'm relying on prompts and I'm relying on a bunch of things to come with the instructions. And I think this is very important because, again, this is something very new. It's a very new skill, and not everyone is comfortable or wants to write specifications or instructions. But if you want to get good results and the outcome that you are looking for, yeah, you have to do it. Yes, so here what's going to happen, it's almost done. So what's going to happen at the end, I will have a report. If I switch back to the official repository, you can check some examples. So you have different prompts and different and different prompts that you can use it. So for example, if I check the scans review, you'd get something like this. So when was generated, what tools were used, if it was a combination between tools and pattern analysis. And then, okay, you have a critical SQL injection, hard-coded API token, and so on. Configuration, what are the tools that you have installed and what was used, scans executed, and then the findings. The security impact and recommended actions and how to fix those. Yes, we are running a little bit out of time, but any last questions that you have about this? Is this something new? Is this useful? Okay, I see some people nodding, so that's good. Yeah, so my plan was to give you some ideas on how you can leverage a little bit AI in your day-to-day life, and I would say one of the key takeaways is take advantage and leverage AI as much as possible, because even if we want it or not, it's here, and it can improve our life quite a lot if we use it in the right way. Yeah, and now the scan result is done. But yes, thank you for joining this session. I hope you liked it, and thank you.